Let's begin the interview. Today's date is January 15th, 2016. Time of the interview is 7:20 p.m. Attending this interview will be myself, witness number 1. My name is Phil Leach. One of my studies is ufology. I am also a state section director here in Indiana for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. I've been in contact with my state director, Stuart Hill, also Robert Powell, Director of Research for MUFON. Myself and Robert has submitted some questions to the witness. We're going to go over that today. Briefly, my background consists of years of public service, including positions in law enforcement, emergency medical services, fire department, county coroner's office, which includes training, investigation, follow-ups, along with specialized training in communications, site evidence, recovery and gathering of evidence, and other topics. We'll put it that way. This interview is an account of a otherworldly craft witnessed by 3 individuals at a distance of 400 feet. These witnesses were on a hunting trip in Canada in August of 2013. As requested by the witness in the case, their identity will remain hidden along with the exact location of where the event occurred. For the purpose of this interview, the reporting witness will be identified as witness number 1. The driver of the vehicle will be identified as witness number 2. Front passenger in the vehicle will be identified as witness number 3. For purposes of the report, witness number 4 will be someone that was in the party that was picked up after the event. For this report only, we'll address him as witness number 4. Could you provide me with your age?
I'm approximately 45 years old.
Can you tell me a little bit about what your background is?
I'm typically involved in a lot of advanced technology work with Department of Defense kind of applications. So just about all of my typical past has been involved with advanced technologies, all kinds of things from electromagnetic systems all the way into sensor design and optical systems.
Okay. Have you gone public with this story before?
I have not.
Okay. Can you tell me why you think it's important to come out now with what happened? What do you want to tell the public?
Well, it was an important part of a milestone in my lifetime, and I'm hoping that by the story coming out that we might find additional people that have had either experiences and or can support some of the technological detail that we're looking for to try to explain how the vehicle flies and some of the novel characteristics that were noted out of this experience.
Could you begin by telling me the date and time of the event, the seating of the witnesses in the vehicle? Maybe you can start somewhere in the area when you finished your hunting trip there. You going back to the vehicle would be fine.
Okay. So the date was August 28th, 2013. Approximate time of the event is about 9:40 p.m. And I was picked up by witness number 2, who was driving the vehicle, and he had with him witness number 3 as well, already in the vehicle. We were driving down this basically a logging road and trying to make our way back to the main highway sections. We're roughly about 8 miles outside of the highway, so it's quite a long duration trip to get back to the main highway. We were roughly 4.5 or 5 miles from the main road when I noted something over my shoulder. I was actually sitting in the back of the vehicle. This was a late model 2013 Ford pickup. It was one of the crew cab style with a seat in the back, and I was sitting in the back. The witness 2 was driving. Witness 3 was in the passenger side front seat. I noted some lights flashing. The very first indication that I saw that was almost a flashing glare in the right-hand side rear window of the vehicle. I caught it in my peripheral vision. So it was actually just over my right-hand shoulder. I quick spun around because I thought that was unusual, as we were out in the middle of nowhere. Literally, it was wilderness, and so my immediate first thoughts were, this is really late for a helicopter to be out in the middle of nowhere. And I first thought that possibly it was a helicopter. It was a relatively low altitude. From the first time that I saw it until it disappeared, that total time period was about 6.5 or 7 minutes total time frame. The amount of time that from the first indication that I saw it until it was directly in front of us was about a minute, maybe a minute and 20 seconds. And in that same amount of time, I was immediately jumping for my cameras, my phone. I had a Motorola Droid with me, a cell phone, and I also had a relatively late model Sony HD camera. And I grabbed my phone first because I knew I could get that to boot up and take video relatively quick. I grabbed it. Whenever I pulled it out and looked at it, it was going through a boot sequence just as if it was just first turned on and trying to reboot. I knew that would be at least 35 to 40 seconds prior to it being able to actually be at the home screen. So I dropped that on the seat of the vehicle and I grabbed my Sony camera, started to try to get that to boot. I attempted to boot it 2 or 3 times and could not get that camera to boot with this craft in front of us. By this time the craft was probably at my 1 o'clock position, so it was about looking straight over witness 3's left shoulder. So it was about me looking from the center of the vehicle in the back seat straight to the right-hand front pillar, windshield pillar. And the vehicle was at a low enough altitude that we could actually see it through you could see it through the windshield. You did not have to be crouched down or anything. It was relatively low. If I were to estimate its altitude, it was probably in the, I'm going to say 150 to 175 feet of elevation. That was probably the highest it was at any one point through this whole thing. So the vehicle, we stopped the vehicle, and I told the witness that was driving, I said, stop the vehicle, and he stopped it. He shut it off, and we sat there and observed the thing. I immediately was going for I said, there's no way that this vehicle can turn off my rifle sight. So I had a brand new Nikon 3x9x50 rifle scope. So I grabbed my rifle and rifle scope, attached to it out of my pack. I had my windows down, so I immediately hung it out the side of the vehicle, and I opened the side door, and I was observing this craft. And the very first thing that was intense was just how bright this thing was. It was spectacular. Having been involved with optical systems in the past, I mean, we're talking about a vehicle that this thing looked like a stadium lighting kind of scenario. It was brilliant in the amount of light that it was creating, and the lights that it emitted were not incoherent light. It was coherent light. It was salty to my eyes. It was just as if I was looking into a laser that had been passed through a diffraction grating or something of that nature. It was not a focused laser. It was a defocused laser kind of look. So anyway, the vehicle was transferring across the front of the windshield. By this time, both the other witnesses were extremely worked up about this. They were, in fact, one of them said, "What is it? What is it?" And I said, "I'm not sure what it is." The other one said, "Just shoot it," like he wanted me to actually shoot a rifle round into this thing. And I said, I can't shoot a round into something that I can't identify. And this is a vehicle that was extraordinary. And I said, you guys just need to be patient and let me observe this thing for the next minute or so that I can take in all these details. So over the next couple minutes time period, I literally was making just a terrific number of mental notes as to what I was observing. Because I was using a rifle scope that had a fixed objective focus, I could actually zoom in and make mental notes as to the scale and size of things. This vehicle was, I mean, it was huge. It's rough dimensions now that we've come back and made calculations, about 170 feet in length, about 60, probably 55 to 60 feet in diameter on the outer disc sections, and about 20 or 21 feet thick. Had just an amazing look to it. The vehicle looked as if it was made out of a forged piece of mercury. It was brilliant and polished, and there was absolutely no lines whatsoever, no rivets. I'm a pilot, and I was immediately looking for all of the things you would normally see in an aircraft. I was looking for, lines for the fuselage that would indicate a door or indicate landing gear, or even looking for a place for where's the propulsion system on this thing. And there was nothing to be discovered in that regard. What was able to be discovered was a very elegant set of what I initially thought were lights around the outside perimeter of this vehicle. Actually turned out that they're anodes or cathodes of some kind. This thing was electromagnetically flying. It was flying by virtue of some kind of a spinning electric field. And I have been involved with a terrific amount of research projects in the past that had high voltage, high frequency involved, so immediately I could derive exactly what was being observed. There was more than 12 inches deep blue plasma, indigo plasma, that was surrounding this vehicle, and that told me that the amount of voltage pressure, if you will, in the propulsion system was astronomical. It was huge, millions and millions of volts. Later I did some calculations based upon the rough calculated surface area of the vehicle, and the amount of depth of plasma, and I was able to determine that this thing was in the 150 to 160 megawatts of equivalent energy in order to generate a plasma covering that many square inches of area to that depth. It's a terrific amount of plasma. The anodes and cathodes that were arranged around this vehicle, they're arranged around this vehicle in such a fashion so that they were working in quad poles. There are basically two rings of lights, roughly 21 lights on the top section, 21 lights on the bottom section, and the opposite. This thing looks like a dog bone. The disc sections were again roughly 55 to 60 feet in diameter, 22 feet in thickness possibly, and it was captured between the two discs with a trunk section that was straight walled. So it almost looked like a dog bone, if you will. The lights that were on the vehicle were actually working counter-rotating, so the lights on the left-hand side were actually rotating in a counterclockwise, and the lights on the other side of the vehicle were in a clockwise, so it almost looked like an optical egg beater. It was very interesting. And the anodes and cathodes were working seemingly in a four lights, too high, too low pairs, because they were at the same color at the same time period. All of the anodes and cathodes, as they were spinning, or as this thing was generating its field, it was literally changing the light color, and only because I had the Nikon scope was I able to actually determine that the anodes and cathodes were not generating a light. The light was being generated by the electrical field force that was being emitted by the anodes and cathodes in its interaction to the light. The actual light that was being generated was in a cone that was not necessarily perfectly attached to that dome where the anode and cathode was located. Each of these anodes and cathodes that were on the outside of this vehicle were roughly 6 inches in diameter. They looked like a little sphere, half sphere, and my studies thereafter have always been in how to explain how this thing was generating this massive electromagnetic field. I already knew, by virtue of it not making any sound in any nature, that it had to be high frequency. It had to be frequency that was greater than 1 megahertz, just because I've had a lot of experience in the past where we generated very high energy densities of megahertz band energy, and only whenever you get to megahertz level frequencies can you actually have an emission go into the air that you don't have a crackle or the striking, almost like a lightning kind of thing. So this vehicle, it was in front of us. We exited the truck, walked around the front of the truck. I laid the rifle scope across the hood of the truck so that I had a better perspective to actually continue to take notes on some of what I was observing. The vehicle it had a contrail of very high frequency energy of some kind. It almost looked like the contrail was it almost had a cone that it was emitted from the back of the vehicle, but the back of the vehicle not relative to the physical back of the vehicle, but relative to the distance or the direction of its travel. And that contrail never changed, even though the vehicle was actually in a spin. It was about a 1 minute interval for its rotation as it was traveling in front of us, and the contrail always stayed to the back side of the direction of this vehicle, no matter what its orientation to us was. Inside that cone was a terrific number of little ionized air sparkles. It's the easiest way. It looked like fireworks almost, but there was zero noise from any of that effort. It was a brilliant look, but I couldn't explain after seeing it how I could see something that brilliant and not have any noise, because if this would have been a firework of some kind, you would have heard all kinds of noise of its operation. So again, I was able to make a determination pretty relatively quick that this had to be the outcome of a very high frequency electromagnetic field. So I observed the vehicle for another 2 or 2.5 minutes. I then turned the rifle scope over to both the other two witnesses, and they took a minute or so each in observing it. By that time, the vehicle had made its way to our left, which was actually a northward direction. And as they were observing that, one of the other witnesses looked and said, "Hey, there's another vehicle," and he actually spotted another vehicle. It was identical. It looked similar colors, and it was about to our east. It was about 2 or 2.5 miles distance. We observed that one for about probably 2 or 3 minutes, and at the same time, we were watching the original first vehicle that was going to our north, to our left. And that vehicle continued. We observed that one until it was probably 3 miles or 3.5 miles away before we lost it in the tree line. We also spotted a third vehicle in that same time period. The third vehicle was further north. Probably, if I were to put an estimate on it, it was possibly 8 or 10 miles north, and it was at much higher altitude, and it accelerated away and over our heads at a just unbelievable velocity. The acceleration was almost immediate. It went from the color temperature that we were seeing with the vehicle that was right in front of us to a brilliant white with a trail of blue, which almost looked like it was trailing a blue plasma behind it. And it went straight over our heads, and we literally watched that one disappear into the horizon. The total time period of that was determined because about the same time that I turned my rifle scope over to the other guys, I pulled out my Sony camera and I turned it on quick, and I got it to turn on, and I actually started to record all of this stuff. There is video of the event. The video is very black noise goused, so it's I did get the camera to stay on, but the camera has not a lot of good video on it. What it does have, which was extraordinary, is it captured a really unusual interference pattern, and the interference was it was an electrical interference, almost like a kind of think of it as a hum bars, and you would see in an old video analog system. There's no way that is a satellite. Oh, it's moving over here. We got 3. That's the original one. Yeah, the one that's straight down the road. Yep, that is the original one. I cannot get him on. out.
That was clicking, man.
Yeah, that guy is going really fast because he's high. And he just covered the entire sky in less than a minute.
You're talking one to the right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
The original one that we saw is this one that's over here.
He's going straight away from us.
I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's just hanging out because he's not.
Out of sight by now, yeah.
He's not moving. There's no light there to be had. Crazy that I can't get it on video. It's where you can see it, but you can't get it on video. What is that? That other one's gone. Thing trucked across the sky and
The new videos are worth their mind, right? You got that kind of.
Well, that's the other one we're looking at right there.
what's that?
That's the other one we're looking at right there.
Yeah.
Putting it on over there a little bit.
Anyway, I caught that. We saw it in the video after we got back to camp, and I said I just can't believe that we didn't get video of this, because I could see it. It's right there. I'm visually watching this thing, but yet the camera would not identify it very, very well. After processing the video, we've done a lot of things to process the video. We were able to determine that just from our talking about spotting these other vehicles, that the time period of the third vehicle that was going very fast from horizon to horizon was roughly 41 seconds. And its altitude, it rose up at a terrific altitude, probably, I don't know, I would estimate it 100,000 feet or something. I mean, it went very high, very fast. And to do that, it had to have just terrific velocity. I mean, again, as a pilot, you see things in the sky. I've got large telescopes. I've observed satellites. I've observed the ISS space station going across. If you know the altitude of something and you see its speed, you can make an early determination of really where it is and how big it possibly could be. And it was a remarkable event to see the velocity that third vehicle attained. So the outcome of all of that was we were in shock and amazed. All three of us had a lot of conversation that evening and over the next few days, and there's no doubt in our mind that we witnessed something that was extraordinary. Since that event, I brought the video back. I bought some pretty elegant electronic gear to allow me to take a look at that interference pattern, and we've been able to determine that there is no doubt an electronic signature of the vehicle that's embedded in the video, which is pretty unique. The high definition video camera has the ability to store megahertz band frequency in order to do the sync rate and all of the content of the high definition video. Now, the optical sensor itself did not capture this. This was the sensitive electronic gear that is on the camera chip and board, not being shielded, for instance. And if you don't shield it, for the same reason that whatever that powerful field that the vehicle had the ability to affect the electronics and not allow them to actually boot up and run. After the vehicle got a quarter mile away from us, the field energy strength was low enough that I actually was able to get the camera to boot up, and it recorded that electronic signature as part of the video in that 2 or 3 minutes time period. So we've been studying that. Really, this is a hope that we can reach out to other possible people that have either similar kinds of experiences and or might be involved in or having been involved in some kind of high frequency RF field kind of generation systems. Possibly that could be a defense pass, that could be advanced scientists in other fields. But the primary reason for sharing all this is I'm looking for help. I want to try to figure out how this vehicle actually flew.
Okay. Go over a couple things here. The terrain itself, if you could share with me what type of terrain it was. You said wilderness earlier, up in Canada. I'm assuming that local town was some distance. How was cell phone coverage in the area? I believe in an early interview that me and you had, you discussed it did affect some electronics that you guys had with you. You in particular had your cell phone. Made some statements about what it done to that. The truck radio, Motorola brand, I believe, you stated there was some problems with that. And also, do you still have the truck, the radio, the cell phone? Do you have the original video that's not been edited? Go ahead.
So I guess I'll start with the location. I mean, it's a wilderness area. This is untamed Canadian outback. So it is logging roads. It is primarily rough country. None of the roads are prepared. They're all dirt roads. So it's very, very difficult to get back and forth through some of these areas. We were roughly 18 miles to the nearest town, and the challenge with the location is you have a substantial amount of it's lumber country. So I mean, there's a lot of trees. We were at the exact place where we stopped was it was the top of a hill, probably one of the highest parts in the area. In fact, we literally whenever when I got out of the vehicle and I was starting to observe this craft to my left. Out the side of the vehicle. I mean, it was. We were at the high point, and it was actually going across. And there's an area down there that actually had a pretty nice little lake, and the vehicle, this craft did not change its elevation. It stayed relatively constant. Whenever we were at the highest peak, it was only about another 140 or 150 feet above us. That's the height. The nearest distance from us to it was probably about 275 to 375 feet, roughly. That was the nearest distance. So if you would triangulate that, that puts us within, it was 400 feet, 450 feet. The cell phone, I mean, there's no cell phone towers in that area. I mean, there's nothing up there. So until you get out on the main roads, they only give you sparse cell phone coverage, and it's only in the towns and only along the main highway areas. So we didn't have any access to cell phone coverage in that until you would get all the way out and back out to the highway.
In a previous interview, you stated that your cell phone had gotten hot to the touch. If you could speak on that a little bit, what makes you? Did the object, in your belief, drain the cell phone battery? Also, you said your camera, video camera, was going through the boot up process. Eventually started working with the object was a little bit a quarter mile away from you. You got some video. What's your opinion of why it didn't take that battery down also as it would with the cell phone? I believe you stated in an interview we spoke with earlier, the camera had around 41% left possibly on it. If you could tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my cell phone, it never did come back to a full boot. It did get very hot. The battery was completely zero by the time I got back to camp. I was able to plug it in and charge it for about 8 or 10 minutes and get it to turn back on. And I later made a call to my wife that evening from it. So I mean, the phone wasn't damaged from a standpoint of exposure to this powerful electromagnetic field, but it was without a question affected from a battery standpoint. Now, why the battery in the phone versus the battery in the camera or the battery in the vehicle, for instance? I don't know the answer to that. The camera battery, it still had many percent left. In fact, I took video when we got back to camp. I took video of some of the camp later that evening as well. And I was doing that primarily from a control standpoint. I wanted to capture additional video on the same camera. I had captured video from before the event, and I had also captured video after the event from the same camera. And I was using that just as a protocol of control. Whenever you come back and analyze this thing. What changed? Is there anything that's changed? Because that could lead to some better understanding of what kind of field that I was actually exposed to.
Okay. Some follow-up questions. Can you explain any emotions you might have had while this event was occurring? Was this, well, just tell me what your emotions that you believe that you was experiencing.
I was pretty cool, calm, and collected. Normally am that type of individual. I'm in a lot of cases, part of my job is to be an observant individual to events, to things, to technology, and so that's by nature my standard. The other two witnesses, they had a completely different experience. I was viewing something and thinking this is probably the coolest thing I'm ever going to see in my lifetime. They were seeing something and thinking that it was going to possibly, do something to us, and we couldn't explain how, how or what or where or when. So, while they were throwing out all kinds of four-letter explicitives defining just how exciting this thing was to observe, I said, you guys need to shut up because I really need to collect all the information that I can here mentally so that I can process this. And that's part of my job. I've been doing that for a good many years.
All right, let's begin the interview. Today's date is January 15th, 2016. The time of this interview is 8:18 p.m. I have here with me witness number 2. If you could explain what occurred that evening, start from where the time that you was arriving back at the vehicle, to get in the vehicle, to go back to the campsite, and what happened from that point on.
Okay, I would say after we got in the vehicle, of course we was all excited and stuff because my buddy just got up, and we were celebrating and talking and cheering that on the way down out of the woods, and we had quite a ways to go back down out of the woods, and we just, like I said, chit-chatting about the night and about the hunt, and as we was coming down out of the woods, driving down the logging road or trail, whatever you want to call it, we just happened to, the fellow in the back seat basically saw some lights in the air, as an airplane or something, and was just observing it, and then he just, at the time, mentioned, saying, hey, stop a little bit, because this is, this is something different, and of course we stopped and started looking at it and things, and yeah, of course it did look a little different, than most airplanes and stuff and things like that. And then, like I said, he was pretty excited about it, and basically, I guess, wanted to get out of the vehicle at that time. And so we did. We stopped and got out of the vehicle and started observing what we saw.
Okay. Well, when you stopped and got out of the vehicle, you observed craft of some kind.
That is correct.
Can you describe a little bit about what that craft looked like? Maybe the size, the colors, what was it doing? Was it moving? Anything you can tell me at all about the craft?
Yeah, it was definitely, I guess, pretty good size, I would say. As far as myself, knowing and saying how far it was, how close we was to it, guess I'm not that great at judging that, and especially after dark and things, I couldn't say that. But one thing I did notice is that it wasn't, I guess, a normal airplane or craft because of the, having a green light on one side and red light on the other, like you normally see. And as my buddy was basically, excited about it and starting to describe some of the things that, man, look at that, with the different lights or something like that, different colored lights, until I actually observed that, yes, there is different colored lights. It's not just the same, and it's not just a winged aircraft, like an airplane or something like that. And another amazing thing too is, we had our windows down. of course, looking at it. And actually, at one time, I think he started it. It might have been when we were still in the vehicle. I think he's looked at it through his scope from his rifle that he was carrying that night. And you know, I think after I got out, I looked at it through scope there a short time too. I think we all three did at a short time. Of course, you know, my buddy, the one that was in the back seat, basically looked at it the longest because it was his scope, and it also was his. He was more intrigued in it.
Okay. Did you notice anything coming out of the craft? Any what we call emissions,
Well-
smoke trails or
Well, actually,
colors or?
yeah, it wasn't no smoke trails or anything, but it's more of something like it was. Oh, I don't know what to say. I don't really want to say fire coming out of it,
Okay.
but more maybe like sparklers or something like that of you know, something that was propelling it to go forward is what I would call that, which you know what that would be for. And one of the amazing things is that when we got out, and like I said, me again, not observe it and stuff, but with my buddy mentioning about no noise, and you stop and think, hey, there is no noise. I mean, we didn't see nothing, and the craft was, like I said, I couldn't tell you for sure how close it was, but it was close enough that we should have heard something, yes. I mean, we wasn't that far away.
So it was close enough. You could have took a shot at it.
Oh, yes, and I believe I even mentioned
You
about
mentioned that? Okay.
Yeah, if you look at that through the gun, I do remember about just making a wisecrack saying, well, just shoot it, you know, and I don't know if I said shoot it, well, maybe identify it later or whatever, but maybe that's what I was thinking, but, you know, that was exactly, yeah, definitely close enough for the rifle that he had. If he wanted to do that, it was way closer than that. I can't even say how, I'd be, I guess, really guessing to try to say how close.
Okay. Again, was you the driver of the vehicle?
I was not, I was a passenger in the passenger seat up front.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about maybe some of your background? Is there anything, training, military, anything like that?
I-
Just a brief.
Do not have any military background or training. Was never in any forces of any kind. I've just been, I guess, a farmer all my life, and you know, working for myself and certain things like that. So no, I haven't.
About, yeah.
All right. You're pretty sure of the object that you was looking at was not man-made. Can we say that, or?
Well, I'm not going to say it was I'm not going to say it was man-made or it was not man-made, because, like I said, I'm just not that much of a person that, you know, paid that much detail and looked at that much detail and stuff of it.
Okay. Would you go back there now to that same area?
Oh, without a question, it would not. Yeah, it would not bother me.
Wouldn't bother you?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No.
It upset you quite a bit during?
No, I'm not going to say it did.
Okay.
It did not upset me. You know, I guess I'm a man of God, and I'm not going to let something here on the earth, you know, to scare me or to keep me away. I wouldn't say that I, you know, stayed up nights and it worried me at all. No, not any.
Okay. How many objects did you see that evening?
I recall, no, we did see a second one that was farther off, a second object, and basically I would say back again that it was not a regular aircraft with the, you know, red lights on one side, green lights on the other, or whatever that you see flying in the air like an airplane. And, you know, but, and I don't know if I remember if there was a third one or not, but I do know that we did see another one at the time.
Okay. Have you had any other experiences like this? Anything like this ever happened before? You seen anything unusual in the skies?
I have not, no.
Okay. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to bring in witness number 1. I'd like to interview both of you at the same time, ask a few follow-up questions, and we'll conclude the interview. I'm here with witness number 1, witness number 3. Decided to go ahead and talk to both of you at the same time. Can you explain how this has changed your life, either during, now, whatever you can share with us? Sometimes these events are very dramatic. They cause a lot of problems sometimes. Go ahead.
I've had a little bit of a loss of sleep over the events. I've woken up with dreams of it. Pretty consistently, I'm thinking about it. My whole drive in capturing all the details that I could of this observation was to try to explain it. That's just the nature of how I work, I guess. So, I guess it probably affected me, maybe more so than you. But I'm kind of in the position of I want to try to explain this. I want to try to figure it out.
Would you like to share anything?
Well, I myself, it hasn't, I guess, bothered me. I really haven't thought too much about it until, my buddy had mentioned about it, here the other day about doing this interview. And then I just started thinking back a little bit about it. But like I said, not losing any sleep over it or not bothering my day-to-day thing at all.
Okay. Can either one of you tell me if you've had any feeling of lost time or the event seemed longer to you than to the other witness? Did you talk about this after it occurred back at the campsite? Kind of what was your thoughts when you got back to camp, I guess, about what occurred?
We discussed, I guess we discussed the event a little bit. We've talked about it a couple times since then. I shared with him the white paper that I had that I had drawn up in order to try to explain some of the detail of it, some of the dimensional arrangement, even some of the colors and the spectrum that was seen. So, I think we've had conversations about this since the event. I don't think it's if you have a major event of this nature, and you shared it with somebody, it's a natural thing that's a connection point to go back to at a later date. So,
did you feel like you was being, I don't know, you was looking at something that was quite unusual? You felt like you was being observed back, I guess? Did you think the craft that you seen reacted in any way to you being there? Or was it just there, for whatever reason, it decided to show up?
My perception was I felt that plausibly that we were being observed at the same time. Of course, didn't see anybody. The vehicle had this just ominous black band around the outside of the outer disc unit or disc shaped sides, and it was almost as if that was some kind of a possibly a viewing port or something. It would have been 3.5, 4 feet tall probably in scale.
I had spoke with witness number 1 earlier in another interview. You had mentioned that there was markings on the object itself. You said they was something you haven't noticed or familiar with, I guess. Can you kind of describe what you've seen, or if you've both seen markings on the craft?
I saw, whenever I was observing this vehicle up close with the scope, I could see some markings on the side of the straight body portion of the vehicle. If I were to put an estimate on the size of they were almost hieroglyphic and looking, and they would have been markings that were less than 12 inches in height. So at raw, you would never have seen them. The only way that you could have seen them is if you were observing it with a high magnification setting on an optical scope. I don't know if you saw them or not.
I did not see the markings on there. I just observed when you wrote the letter that at that time that, you did, I think, have some markings wrote on that. Like I said, I'm trying to think back on when that was. That was a while back ago we had that letter, but no, I could not have seen any markings.
Okay. How long have you guys known each other?
Very long time.
Long time?
Yep, whole life, yeah.
Okay. Has this affected any of the group of witness 1, 2, 3, or 4 to where you have any loss of contact or anything like that?
Not at all.
Not at all?
Not in my opinion.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and conclude this interview. I'd like to thank you and for coming forward, taking the time to talk with me. With the need to stay anonymous, it's your desire to submit this information to the public and allow me to use the submitted documents, video testimony, make everyone aware of what you experienced, using the different forms of media as needed. You both agree to that?
I do.
I do.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and conclude this interview. Today's date is January 15, 2016 at 8:36 p.m. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me.